Welcome back to the 60/40 cash flow series. We're now up to tip number 9, so hopefully you're finding that you're now focusing a little bit more on the cash flow in your business, because that's the key, to have more cash today than you did yesterday. And if that's not happening, we need to find a way to get your cash flow back on track. My name is Cherie, and this tip is just part of a series of 14 things that you can do to begin to take control of the cash flowing in and out of your business. Is that what you're looking for? Because these tips are just the start of how we can help you work less, earn more, and to create a business that supports the life that you want. Our tip number 9 is to watch your inventory or your stock on hand. I'm going to use the term stock on hand or just stock and inventory as meaning the same things for the purpose of this tip. Inventory can be one of 3 different types of things depending upon the industry that you operate. So in a service-based business, your inventory might be your work in progress. So that's the time you've spent on a job but which you haven't billed or been paid for yet. For manufacturers, inventory could be made up of the raw materials or the bit parts used to make the whole, the work in progress to build it to that point of valuation, or the cost of the actual finished goods now available for sale. For a retailer, wholesaler, and possibly an e-commerce provider, inventory will usually be the goods that they can immediately sell with no further finishing work required. If you have an item-based business, then inventory will be one of your most important areas for you to look at because it's the base from which you'll earn your income. Your ability to turn over stock for profit will be how you keep your business going. It means having to make smart decisions about how much inventory you hold, how much you store, and how much and how often you reorder. Some e-commerce providers won't hold any stock, they'll drop ship it, and that just means they'll buy it from a supplier only on receipt of the order and then have the product delivered directly to the end customer. This discussion doesn't really apply in that circumstance. On the money meter, this affects money in and money out, but mostly affects money out. The reason it does affect money in is because it affects the cash conversion cycle. The faster you can deliver your end product, the greater the opportunity to speed up that cycle. Most of the effect will be tied to money out. This is because you'll be paying for your suppliers or overheads necessary to procure, make, or produce and then store the goods. If you are service-based, you will be incurring labour costs toward the production of the deliverable. It just won't have been invoiced yet. The ease to implement inventory management is low. There are a lot of moving parts to managing your stock, but it is essential to the long-term success of the business and to avoid the stress of having unsold items just sitting there. The ratios we'll be showing you shortly assess the speed at which your inventory is turned into cash. There are a number of projects that you can implement around inventory that will help you manage your cash flow more effectively. So this is a recurring theme and an absolute fundamental. You have to know your numbers. The one tricky factor here is being clear on the definition that you're going to use for the purpose of valuing your inventory or stock on hand. Accountants might use different methods of valuation, and if you're preparing your own return, then you could use any one of 3 methods, being cost, market selling value, or replacement value. This is before we even enter into the discussion on things like activity-based costing. The larger your business, the more likely you will use a more complex model to calculate the value of your stock. But no matter what method you do use, as with any time you're comparing a time series of ratios, you'll want to make sure that your method of valuation is the same so that you're comparing apples with apples. One number that you will want to calculate in your business will be inventory turnover. This is a ratio number and it just shows how many times your business has sold and replaced inventory over a given time period. It's only really meaningful when compared to an industry benchmark or against your business's past turnover calculations. Using this number when it's low can suggest possibly excess inventory or weak sales. Maybe you're overstocked. It could also suggest that prices are expected to rise and that you've locked in a cheaper price, or if shortages are anticipated. The longer an item sits there, the higher its holding cost will be as well. Whereas a high ratio could imply either strong sales or not enough inventory. On the flip side, it can mean that you're understocked and relying on a just-in-time system, which can cause other business issues if there's a hiccup in the supply chain. The other way to calculate your inventory is to look at your days of inventory, or how many days on average that your business takes to turn its inventory into sales. Here, the lower the number, the better, but it is again dependent upon your industry. You would normally expect low numbers of days for a low margin, high turnover type of business such as a supermarket. While inventory turnover is related to days sales of inventory, the two tell different stories. You can measure one or both, whichever you find more useful for your own situation. So knowing what you now know about inventory and its close interaction with cash flow and profit, what do you think you could do about managing your inventory just that little bit better? How do you think you might go about implementing any change? Are you thinking about looking at sales forecasting, or maybe implementing a just-in-time system for ordering, even acknowledging the issues with it? Or maybe you're thinking about changing your software to manage stock better, or even your whole point of sale system to make it all integrated and to give better overwatch. We'd love to hear about what you're doing or thinking about doing, so please connect with us on either Facebook or LinkedIn. And if you do use LinkedIn, use the hashtag GrowWith6040 just to let us know what you came up with. Now for the YouTube extra content. Here's 3 things you can do surrounding inventory to consider creating a better system for your business. Nothing irritates a client more than mistakes. Mistakes cost both time and money in the rework to get it right. Looking through your workflow process and considering past failures, is there a step in that process that keeps causing the same issue? I should be clear, this isn't about targeting a person, and if the issue keeps occurring in the same step, you'd firstly need to ensure that there's adequate training and support for the role, to assess the person has the appropriate skills required for the task, and to confirm whether the step in the process and the tasks that are needed to get it done are accurately documented. From one of our earlier tips, you might have already looked at your process flow and have this now mapped out. If you find that things keep going amiss in the same place, maybe undertaking a root cause analysis of why the mistakes keep happening is one way to look at fixing it once and fixing it properly. Having a look at your customer complaints, although not pleasant, might also provide you with some major insight into your operations and also provide you with some amazing opportunities as well. The second is to minimize the number of stock lines. So the more stock keeping units or SKUs that you keep, the more there's potential issues. This can become a real issue trying to gauge future sales volume or trying to create a budget where you have to account for not only the make, but things like sizes and colors. When you have to stock multiple sizes for each style, it will increase your cost of inventory, storage, and provide a greater chance of shipping issues. The benefits in minimizing the number of stock lines are definitely great. While this won't always be an option, keep in mind different ways that you might be able to minimize the volume of stock that you're holding so that you aren't left with a lot of unsaleable goods or obsolete goods as the seasons change. Where there is a service element to the business, by minimizing the number of saleable products, it should also enable you to streamline the product and systemize it in such a way that will actually increase overall productivity and shorten the cycle for delivery. The last is to always consider your inventory as cash. You can think of inventory as little dollar bills sitting on the floor. It's money you've paid out, so it's in your best interests to turn it back into cash as soon as possible. Managing your inventory is a critical function in a number of business types. Low inventory can be just as bad as too much. It's hard enough now to get people into stores or on your site, so it's a very real balancing act of having enough stock on hand to satisfy customers' needs while not overstocking. Low inventory can lead to missed sales or disruption, especially where supply chains are impaired. By keeping that in mind, with your inventory as actually cash, just in another form, does that change how you look at it? Will you now be taking a closer look at your forecasts to see where you can undertake some better planning? Thanks for listening to this tip in our cash flow series. We've got more to come, so keep an eye out for them as they're released on our social channels, or sign up for our email list where you can get a fast pass to access these tips and more. So just head on over to our site at www.6040.io/cashflow and get your access today. So there's 14 tips in total in this series, and we'd love to have you back. Have an awesome day.